Hello everyone, I'm Sharli from Artificial Intelligence and Data Science Department of SMBSC. So in this video, we'll be discussing about the regression task performed for a particular use case. So I've been given with the use case of drug discovery and development for pharmaceuticals. So before getting into the code, let us see what is regression. A regression is a supervised machine learning technique which is used to predict the continuous values. It finds a relationship between the variables. So what does it mean saying a continuous value? It means that the target column or the predicted values are continuous or numerical values, okay? And then a regression technique finds a relationship between the independent and dependent variables. So as we all know, dependent variable is the target column and the independent variable is the rest of the columns which is used to predict the dependent column values, right? So before getting into the code section, let me show you the data set. So we are working on the same data set in which we have performed the classification task too. So as you can see, the same data set with CID, SMILES, molecular formulas, IUPAC naming, the monoisotopes, and then bondings, etc., etc. And then similarly, we have the last target column as PIC50. So coming into the code section, let us discuss about the input statements given here. As we all know, the first two import statements like pandas and numpy are necessary to handle the data set. And then the rest of the import statements from sklearn packages are train underscore test underscore split for splitting the data into train dataset and test dataset. And then we have imported random forest regressor as our regressor algorithm or regressor model. So we have many regression models like linear regression, multiple linear regression, logistic regression, decision tree regressor, random forest regressor, etc., etc. So I have used random forest regressor, for which my dataset gives more accuracy, like more R2 score. So here we have also imported metrics such as mean squared error and R2 score. We can also use FN score and other matrices also. The only difference is that in classification task, you used to use accuracy score, confusion matrix like that matrices. And for regression, we use mean squared error, R2 score, FN score, etc. And same way, we are importing standard scaler for scaling the values of the data within the particular range in order to avoid the outliers and compress the data within the particular range. So this step or this code section, of course, defines the uh, data imported into the file, like workspace. Okay. So we can also use it through a variable, or we can directly declare it in the parenthesis, like pd.read underscore csv of path. And this section of code is to remove or pre-process the data set. Like what we are going to remove here is that in the target column of PIC50, we have lot of blinded values. So what are these blinded values? These are something that is unwanted to our data set or unwanted to our target columns, right? So the rest of the values are numerical values while these are string values. So it cannot be processed as such. So we have to remove the entire row which contains PIC50 as blinded. So this section of code removes the rows which contains the PIC50 as blinded. And after pre-processing our data set, we need to extract our dependent and independent variable. So here our x variable acts as the independent variable and y acts as our dependent variable. As we have discussed earlier, the dependent variable or the y variable is our PIC50 column, and the x variable or the independent variable is rest of the columns of the data set excluding the PIC50, right? So we are finding the mean of the column in order to mark it as a 0 and 1s in order to make the target column or the things like zeros and ones by taking the mean value. And as we all know, this section of code is just we are importing like importing or using the standard scalar function, and then we are fitting it into the fitting it to scale the values of the dataset. And then the next step is to divide our dataset into train and test dataset. So we are just going to use it as train underscore test underscore split of x set like y set and then test size and then random state. Okay, so we are going to divide the data set as x train, x test, y train and y test. On using this function, we are going to pass the parameters like x, y, test size and random state. And after all these processes are done, we are going to import the model over here. So this is the model we are actually using as we have discussed earlier during the import statements. So our model is random forest regressor and I'm assigning it to a variable like RF regressor. And we are going to pass the parameters like random state is equal to 42, n estimators is equal to 100. As we have discussed earlier, it is number of decision trees used because a random forest is collection of decision trees, right? And each tree of maximum depth of 10 units. And then once a model is passed with the parameters, we have to fit the model. So fitting is done on the train dataset. So we are passing x train and y train. Finally, after training a dataset, we need to predict. So the model dot predict of, we are going to pass the x test because prediction is going to be done on the test dataset and not on the train dataset. And finally, the matrices should be printed over here in order to view the results. So as we have imported MSE, RMSE and R2 score, we are going to print the statements accordingly. So mean squared error function passed with y-test and y-pred. Similarly, mean squared error passed by y-test and y-pred, and also R2 score the same R2 score function with y-test and y-pred, and we have obtained the results. So thank you for watching this video.